So what we're going to do is start from the machine. So the first thing we want to do is remove the plug. Keep these, they're always handy. If for any reason you do have to take the hose off, it's always good to put this back on. Obviously stop air getting into the manifold. The gauge. I personally like to have it tilted back just a little bit. So when we tighten it, that's kind of the angle. The reason being is when I'm spraying, I can just look straight down and have a really good visual element of where my pressure sits. Next thing we're going to do is add the hose. We need to cut off the straps. With the blade, never cut through this way because you could nick the hose. So always put the blade under and pop it off. Pop off the red caps. Again, just finger tight. Okay, so we need to add the whip hose. First thing you do is take the main hose, the male connector, put together. You take the whip hose, hold the male connector at the other end. Take the whip hose and just connect to the gun. Okay, tighten with the spanner, don't over tighten. Take the other end, hold the gauge. So 2 spanners, one on the male connector, one on the hose, and just gently tighten. And now the other side, just turn in the opposite direction. So finally take the whip hose that's connected to the gun and again, just tighten, all done. Okay, so what we now have is we've got everything tightened up. So the gauge is in a really nice position. Obviously we've tightened up to the machine, to the hose, to the whip hose, to the gun. Everything's been tightened. We will double check that everything is correct and tightened correctly when we do the next video, which is obviously flushing through. First thing we're going to do is change the manifold filter to make sure the prime valve is in the down position. If you can't undo it, the chances are it's under a little bit of pressure. So whilst ever it's in the down position, you'll never have that issue. Just loosen. There's your filter. This is the filter that comes with it, okay? This is a 30 mesh. We disregard this. We've never used it. We take the 50 mesh. There's the spring, drop the spring in the filter, turn it upside down, drop it in. So technically you've got the spring, then the filter, you can tell because it'll only go in one way. And then you drop the housing on the top and just tighten up. What we're going to do is change the gun filter from a white to a yellow, 50 mesh to 100 mesh. So what we need to do is lift the trigger lock up so that we can obviously pull the trigger. Therefore, we can actually pull the guard down from that section underneath. Hold the handle, hit the head and turn until it's loose, spin it off. That pops off. There's your filter. Let's remove the filter. The spring, take the spring off. Don't lose the spring. In fact, you're better off trying to get spares. Drop the spring in first. The filter is a fat end and a thin end, okay? The fat end is blocked, the thin end is not. The thin end will fit into the top of the gun, okay, but the fat end won't. What you want to do, fat end down. Make sure that you've always got the spring in there by giving it a little plunge. If you drop it in and it drops down and it's not bouncing, you haven't got the spring. So, and we go. Take the head. Put the head back on, just tighten. Again, all this is finger tight. Once we're there, hold the handle, give it quite a stiff one, pull the trigger, and that pops in there. Trigger lock back on. With the T360 gun, if you're ever messing around with a guard or a tip, make sure the trigger lock is on. If the trigger lock isn't on, make sure you've got 2 fingers behind the trigger at all times. Ideally, make sure that there's no pressure by having the prime valve in the down position. So the guard actually comes with a saddle and seat already fixed. So there's nothing to do there, just comes as standard. So what we're going to do is, on it goes. What we do is we tighten it until it's not moving. Then we're just going to loosen it until it starts to rattle. The easiest way to do this is to put your hand in here to hold the gun. Take the tip. The tip, if you see, has got a little bevel there on the top. Okay, that's going to go at the front. If it's at the back, it will catch the guard and it won't go in. So it needs to be at the front. And all we're going to do is just wiggle it down. Turn it to the front. Double check. Never look into the gun, just look across the gun. You can see that obviously it's in the right position. And now what we're going to do is tighten up the guard. Obviously it comes with a clean shot. We've got videos that will show you as well, which is how we find the sweet spot of the clean shot. So that'll give you a really good idea how to obviously get the most out of it. And obviously the extension bar, all the threads of the extension bars, okay, are the same fixing as what's on your gun. Remove the plug, add the extension bar, tighten up. We do advise tightening it up with a spanner just to make sure it's 100%. Away you go. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, with all tips, you get a new saddle and seat. There's the saddle and seat. It's in two parts. Okay, the black pops off, pop it back on. That goes inside your guard. The chances are you won't need to ever worry about it. There is videos on there that will show you how to obviously change those. So again, don't panic. If you need it, we've got it for you. Right, so that's the machine all set up. There's obviously the additional accessories, your tips, your extension bar and your clean shot. So what we're going to do next in the next video for you guys is we're going to actually give it a good flush. We're going to give it a flush to make sure that it's all completely clean before you start spraying, no contaminants, but we're also going to show you how to do the safety aspect, make sure that all of the tighteners that you've done on all the connections are 100%. Let's do this.